And it looks like we're live. Hi, everyone. I'm Airier, and here we're check out the next episode of Star Wars Warhammer 40K, episode 46, The Light, ... And it definitely doesn't lead into the phrase, or sorry, the word fades. Because knowing Fan, he's had flickers, flares, and whenever a flare happens, you usually have it then fade out. So, you know, I'm sure this is going to be a happy, easy episode that won't have me going, why the hell is this the only episode? That's the most recent one. There's nothing else after this. You know, my usual reaction, just more extreme because there's literally nothing else after this. I heard Fan is going to put out sometime soon an hour-long preview of his next part. Also, the fact that an hour-long preview is the preview. Yeah. I've heard things about the next chapter. All of them are. They're not out yet, so that's really the only part I care about because, gah! Yeah. So in the meantime, we're going to jump right in and try to ignore the fact that this is the last episode out at the moment. And it definitely will end on a happy note and not take Fan's usual cliffhanger shenanigans to 11. Realize it missed a digit and add a 0 to the end of it. Yeah. This is fine. This is fine. Also, I recently put in a cat jail grate so they couldn't get in here and chew the sparky pasta. If you have cats, you probably aren't even questioning everything I just said. And if you do, yeah, my apologies. So if you hear any random cats meowing or trying to do parkour off the walls to get a better height to grapple above the top of it, I have a video of them doing it last night. I uploaded one where I didn't think they would actually parkour, and then I recorded the second one I'm going to upload either today or tomorrow where they did parkour. So there's a very good chance at some point I'll be like, no, oh God, why are you doing that? Because this very well might actually happen if it gets warm enough in here that they really want to get in here. So if there's any random cuts, that's why. Just giving a heads up immediately because it very well might happen. Or if you hear some random cats meowing outside. Yeah, I'm aware, and they're being incredibly cute on purpose to try and draw me away, and they have more or less succeeded a few times already. It's a problem. I am very weak to cats. Yeah. So moving on, we're going to jump right in, see where this goes, and again, repress the knowledge that this is the last episode of the playlist. Yeah. This is fine. Also, people mentioned there's apparently a longer version. So I'm just going to double check that. Yep. There are apparently 2 versions of The Light. That's weird. I'm looking at the 58-minute episode. There's also a 57-minute. This is weird. I have no idea what the difference is. So I'm going to pick this one, unless one of them is an absolute and utter troll, because I could see Fan doing that. Either way, we're going to jump in. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I don't know. Oh, also, random aside. Had some free time, so I decided to start painting models again. And just threw together some quick Grey Knights. Also, these were not Grey Knights. They were kit bashed to look like Grey Knights, and I got them off someone because he didn't want to paint them. Which is his loss my game, because I did want to paint them, and I hate kit bashing, so it kind of works out. Alright, now back to not distracting myself from the fact that this is the most recent episode, and anything after this is not going to be out yet. I know I'm getting into this. I know it's going to be fun. I also know that by the end of it, I'm going to be shouting, "Dear God, Fan, why are your cliffhangers like this?" Because it's Fan. And I'm just making it worse for myself at this point. I'm just making it worse. Moving on, we're just going to jump right in and ignore the obvious problems that will come at the end of the video. Episode 46. The Light. Yeah. Love the music he's choosing, but then bring up for all the sitting we're about to do. That's a weird phrase, but I stand by it.
Ahsoka walked in,
footsteps
the doors hissing and sliding open
starting on
as she
Ahsoka's
neared the command center.
That Kubik one.
It was in a new location from before. A similar set of rooms, but deeper inside of a different Axumite spire, defended from all angles so as to prevent a repetition of what had happened in the last command center. The Togruta.
I'm assuming they mean the entire Samuel actually getting in and assassinating the Gene Stealer. Or do they mean what they did to the Imperial, which also was an assassin infiltrate? Never mind, makes sense either way.
Warrior felt a shiver course down her spine from her neck to her tailbone. She had missed that assault by mere minutes, having departed just prior to the Imperial attack. The strange, stretched face of the rebel.
She's feeling fear over the assault carried out by Samael, and she's about to go meet the representatives of the Imperium, including Samael, who she also met in person right after he carried out the attack. Oh, yeah, that is going to be a very fun meeting if she figures out exactly which assassin he is, in the sense that he just has the assassins working for him, but he worked fine in this case.
Rebel who had been walking into that place flashed before her eyes, remembering him.
Oh, she knows him then.
Knowing that she was among the last beings to see him alive. But she shook the thoughts
she's talking
out of
about
her head
the
with a
gene
slight
seer. She didn't know it was a
waggle
gene
of her
seer.
leku. These were hardly the first morbid thoughts of that nature she had been subject to that day, and from the sound of it, her gloomy self-reflection would have to wait. After all, she had just entered the room, and had not said a word, and already people were yelling.
Then what was the point of this entire assault?
Yelled the voice of a woman, Jedi Master Elena.
That doesn't sound so much like AI, but that Fan just decided to pitch down his voice and made it a little faster. Ooh.
Zan, Ahsoka realized.
We have to cut our losses. The Imperials have proved to be too much trouble. We cannot continue to play this game by their rules.
Admittedly, I'm pretty sure that's the AI doing Mace Windu or Samuel L. Jackson. And frankly, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's not that bad. It's not great, but it's not bad.
Snapped back the thunder of Master Mace Windu's response.
Although that is
game by their rules.
Snapped back the thunder.
Snapped back the thunder. Yeah, I don't even need to know anything else about that. It's not a bad voice for Windu. Level-headed, maybe a little elevated, but thundered? Fan is actually really good when he does the voice, even if it doesn't sound perfect to the character. It sounds perfect to his intonations because he's very good about that aspect on his end. I think he's a better voice actor than he gives himself credit for. Even if he can't match the voice to be perfect, he matches the tone the voice needs to get. And this, even if the voice is closer to Sam, it is not close to the tone needed. Ooh.
Thunder of Master Mace Windu's response. Ahsoka turned a bend in the last short corridor and entered the space of the command room properly. Seeing them both standing near the center of the room, the Jedi, clones, and other command staff standing back and around them.
So they all died for nothing?
Yes.
So he went with your plan to assault their
Because he
temple
lost his
for
arm.
nothing?
Yep.
No.
Spoke the Jedi woman opposite Mace Windu.
What is
Her
he
fists
proposing
clenched,
instead?
Her hair wrapped in a tight bun, her face smeared with soot, ash, and blood. Her robes were tatters, drifting in her wake, her eyes fierce and expression increasing as she crossed her arms. However, even her appearance was pale in comparison to the fearsome figure cut by Mace Windu.
Because
His
she hasn't
robes
seen it
were
yet.
burnt and torn, his muscular flesh visible in multiple places, and very few of those spots were unmarred by burns, cuts, or deep, dark bruises. His left arm...
I just realized why this is ironic. Windu looks now like Palpatine probably did after Windu started reflecting the lightning to him. Or was it Windu or Anakin who did that? I can honestly forget at this point. It's been a long time since I've seen the third episode. I need to get back to that. But yeah, he basically has the Sith beat up body transformation.
Arm was missing. His robe cut
even got a
and
partial
folded
Anakin.
over the stump, which halted the progress of his limb halfway down his forearm.
Yeah.
But nowhere was his grim nature more clearly painted than upon his face and the expression which he cast over it. Small
she be able to
white
feel
burn
how he's
patches
off?
framed an emotional tapestry that Ahsoka had never seen on the Master's face before. Each hateful wrinkle representing a single brushstroke which etched out the furious features of the fallen Master. One of his eyes was white, hollow and sightless. The flesh around it inflamed, reddened, and burned. His other eye, however, was the more fearsome.
Other?
A fiery sphere, like the eye of a red and yellow sun.
She can see it.
held
Okay.
in a glower which
Does
was
she
all
know
too
what that means, or is that just something you
obviously able
ignore?
to see the subject of his current frustration. Despite his vicious demeanor, or perhaps because of it, Master Zahn did not back down an inch from his challenging presence.
I am in command here,
Windu hissed through clenched teeth.
and I am giving you a direct order.
Half of that was great, but just the second half felt drawn out enough to be hissed. But it came after Fan described the writing as hissed, and it didn't fit. Yeah, people said I would be a little annoyed about the voice in this one. And it's not that it's bad, it's more just that it feels like Fan is playing around with the AI voicing, and he's learning his process with it, and he has the job to down, right? So we got the hissed voice at the second half, he just didn't have it right. But it also means he probably could get it right, so I guess given time, he probably could make it work.
Elena made a dismissive sound and laughed derisively in his face.
Do you really still believe that? After what your last assault cost us?
Is he
After
planning
ordering
a
Coleman
second
and
assault?
Oppo into those massacres? After what you did to Master Obi-Wan Kenobi? Do you have any idea how many losses the entire Order just took because of your mistakes?
The female Jedi
Did he just kill more
Battlemaster
Jedi than
railed,
Palpatine ever did?
jutting her chin towards
Yeah,
him
she
as though
might,
to
yeah.
point with it.
And that is why I'm not going to repeat those mistakes. The temple assault has been nothing but failure since the beginning. We should have always planned to do this from the start.
Oh, this is not the way I thought this was going. Not talking about the AI for once, it's nice. But when he first came to, I guess, knocked out Obi-Wan and went full on Dark Jedi, he was complete and utter, everything must burn. I was honestly expecting his attack was going to be, we throw more bodies at it, more blood, more skulls. But no, he's actually planning something differently. And I'm assuming it's going to be more horrific. But this is more tactical than I thought he could still think. Because it almost looked like Fan was leading into higher functions are not going to be a thing for long for Windu. Yeah.
Countered the one-armed Jedi Master. Ahsoka
So what was he
sidled up
actually
to one
asking,
of the
though?
clones in the room silently, eyes on the hostile display before her.
Hey, Sando.
Ahsoka whispered
it's
to
not
the
the worst.
clone.
What's going on?
Wait,
what are
that's
they
Sando?
arguing about?
She has Sando with... She has clone Rambo. Not to be confused with Frodo, who is clone... Oh, dear God, how did you do that? Yeah.
She asked.
Got word from the fleet above us. Good news and bad news.
The clone whispered back, himself also watching the debate before them with no
Debate?
small interest.
Well,
Good
that's a
news is
stretch.
the Imperials have been driven out of the system. Bad news is they have to leave in a few minutes to head back to Coruscant. Apparently
Why?
another Imperial fleet showed up there.
Sando explained.
What?
Fan, you son of... Are you literally ending Axiom on... And we're going to move to Coruscant. I mean, it makes sense. And this would be the actual attack fleet, not the remains left behind as well. Oh.
What? Coruscant?
Ahsoka said, barely
This is a silly
able to
place.
keep her voice down. Sando nodded.
Half the Armada has already gone back. The other half will follow soon. Mace wants to take most of the Jedi back with them, but not before.
Sando continued before trailing off.
What? Not before what?
Ahsoka pressed urgently,
I'm assuming
but silently.
big bombs.
Not before using what's left of our ships to bombard the Imperial Temple from orbit. He wants
Weren't they already doing that? I'm not making that dismissively, but weren't they already firing on the temple from orbit? I could be mistaken, but or were they just doing a half-assed job of it for some reason? Because I almost distinctly remember that was something Fan described. I literally thought that was already happening.
to reduce their whole structure to a clean hole in Azure City, leading all the way down to the true surface.
Oh, damn.
Ahsoka felt like she had just been slapped, almost rocking back on her heels at the
I guess
news.
that's the difference.
Meanwhile, the debate raged.
Yep. Yeah. It's basically not so much an orbital bombardment as area of effect denial, as in, you built it on a surface. If you survive the blast, you're not going to survive the fall. Also further proof that gravity is truly the most powerful force in every fictional universe. Rocks fall, everybody dies is always going to work.
Master Ilana uncrossing her arms and pointing a demonizing finger at Windu.
Nothing but failure. Shakti succeeded in assassinating their commanders. Ayla fought and bled her forces to reach this cursed temple. And Ahsoka Tano ensured the destruction of their main force. The only person failing here is you, Master Windu.
I actually think Windu's in the right on this one.
Windu grit his teeth so tightly, Ahsoka could almost hear the enamel straining against itself. His right...
This is going to be something I don't usually do, but I completely disagree with the tack Fan has chosen on this aspect because of how he set up the characters. I do not know this character Windu is talking to right now. If they're canon or OC, it doesn't matter. Fan has really good OCs when he does that, like most of the Imperial side, so it doesn't matter on quality. If it's an actual character, I do not know their temperament. But I almost think he's doing this backwards because he led into Windu going full Dark Jedi. Making the smart play to cut losses is kind of a good option. If anything, he should be talked out of running back in to say, fuck it all, we're going to do this. But now with all the guns and all the murder and maybe big bombs in front to lead the way, or in bombardment while they storm the place. Because from a tactical side, they've seen their losses when they get up close. Orbital bombardment, now that they have superiority in the air, is literally the best decision possible. Because they don't need to worry about, little things like we don't have enough troops to survive the enemy. So don't worry about that. Just fire on from high. Yeah, I think this is actually the smart one. Which is why I'm kind of disagreeing with Fan choosing the sides on this going this way. Because without knowing about Ahsoka's potential ceasefire, which is going to be the main drama, this initial siding just doesn't feel right. There's someone, oh yeah, Beanie said, Windu is technically, and the other lady is technically right from the Jedi perspective of not killing everyone needlessly. Yeah, but also, I think this far into the Clone Wars, not having either Obi-Wan or Ahsoka make the actually correct from the Jedi perspective argument, Fan has even said himself, basically everything has fallen except for a very few light side users at this point, Ahsoka and Obi-Wan being two of them. Again, I don't know this character nearly well enough to say anything about their temperament.
Right hand opening into a claw at his side.
Enough.
He growled.
Stand down, Elena. I won't say it again.
She raised an eyebrow at him, her stance spreading somewhat, her hands balling into fists.
Or what? You'll strike me with the lightsaber you're reaching for, Mace?
She asked,
Is
rage
he reaching?
constricting her throat, her own eyes fierce as flames as she glared at him.
Do I need to remind you that you left it and your honor as a Jedi buried in the chest of an Imperial officer?
Wait, what? Honor as a Jedi? I mean, don't get me wrong. I think there's things about being honorable, but was Jedi honor a big thing? I just missed that? This is actually me asking, is this an entire point of Jedi culture that I just completely missed more than I realized? Or is this just her throwing out something that fans using that I don't quite make sense? Or is she just saying something to piss him off and it means nothing?
Lana continued, stepping towards Windu. Mace's face twitched, as though he had just realized what he was doing, but he was too far gone to backtrack now.
He's gonna reach for her
fingers on his
lightsaber?
remaining hand curled, forming a fist of his own in response to her words.
His fist
and
is probably
Ilana
more dangerous than
returned
his
the
lightsaber.
gesture with a fierce, joyless grin, raising her own fists in response.
Or should I remind you why they call me Iron Hand instead?
What?
I appreciate Master Kenobi, but I will go down as...
I'm almost certain at this point this is not a OC because that is a weird epithet for a Jedi. Yeah.
As easily as he did if you try it, Mace.
The Battlemaster promised her superior, voice cold
Okay.
as forged steel left in the snow. Mace did not flinch.
We are destroying the temple.
He stated, reflecting her frigid tone back to her. In response, several clones and Jedi behind Mace stepped forward, handling but not raising their weapons, making clear where they sided.
Oh.
We are
now that's a
taking the
power
temple.
play.
She retorted, a challenge obvious in every syllable. As with Mace, an even larger group of clones and Jedi approached from behind Ilana, mirroring the gesture of their counterparts.
Oh. Oh, that is not what I was expecting. The Jedi taking sides, sure. The clones taking sides. That is not what I was expecting. I did not think they would do that. I
Greater in
legitimately
number,
didn't think they
but
would. I thought they'd just
not
step
by
out and
a
let it be
huge
solved on its own.
amount. Ahsoka felt a shrill cold filling her veins as she continued to bear witness to this internal collapse.
The Imperium might
During
win
the
this by
dawning
sheer
rays of
sloth.
Azure City's morning, the Jedi had stood united and together like rarely before. Now, they seemed moments from trading blows with one another.
If they cut
And
contact when Order
what was
66
worse,
is pulled, would that
Ahsoka
mean there'd
could
be a
not for the
bunch
life
of
her
loyal
think
clones
of
who just
how
don't
she
know
could
what happened?
possibly talk either side down? As she puzzled her brain over what she could do to interfere before it was too late,
Shoot into the air.
another two figures walked past her and came to stand between the two contending Jedi. Masters Obi-Wan Kenobi and Jocasta Nu.
Oh yeah, she's still around.
Enough.
Forgot that.
Said the elderly master,
Yeah,
her
Obi-Wan's
eyes
alive, that's
narrow
good.
as she stood
I was
in
wondering if
such
he'd
a
just be
way
out of
that she
play
could
for the rest
look
of the
back
chapters.
and forth between the two. Obi-Wan taking a position opposite her, himself able to only stare at one of them comfortably, thanks to the thick brace around his neck. Unsurprisingly, his pristine gray-blue eyes locked onto the half-fiery, half-blind spheres of Mace Windu.
Yeah, he earned that
Master
one.
Windu, this has gone far enough.
He said, voice stern, yet not unkind.
Indeed. You two are showing precisely why the Impales have been extracting such a cost from us.
Jocasta
Oh, Imperials. It meant to say Imperials. Okay, I thought I said the Impales. Like, did I miss a faction? Yeah, that just threw me off for a second.
added in his wake.
But he's...
Began Master Ilana, but Jocasta forestalled her with a raised finger.
We are not blind to the folly of what Master Windu is suggesting. But the way you are confronting him is not helping anyone. Neither he nor you come to a solution.
The chief librarian of the Jedi Order counseled. Mace was the one to respond, not Ilana.
Folly?
He spat, incredulous.
He's not wrong,
The
though.
only folly was in not planning to do this from the start. How
Yes! And this is why I think they have this on the completely wrong sides. Until the focus shifts to Ahsoka's plan versus a Mace Windu not wanting to do it, I think this is actually a narrative issue. And that if it was gone around, I would actually just make a few edits here to switch off which side they were on here. To cut losses, to save the people they can save, and just say that everyone else is evacuated. Or to say that the plan is to evacuate people and then blow it up for the good Jedi option versus Mace Windu taking the more drastic fuck the lives, they don't matter option of just throw bodies until it wins, or also known as the Imperial Standard Procedure of Operation. The more I hear it, the more it does actually bother me, because it sounds like Fan is writing them wrong. Now, again, it could also be that the person he's writing in has a very distinct temperament where that's the kind of thing they would say. So Windu has to be the other option because they would agree, and that would completely break the system here. But it feels like this is more of a writing mistake, not so much a character mistake, but just it does seem like it's a little off here. I'm only highlighting this because for any other writer, though, I would ignore this. Because most writers, when they get into, well, the character's going to do this for plot reasons, you just take it, because a lot of writers don't really know what a character would do or have an overarching understanding of their own narrative to do that. So it's like, this is what happened. Oh, okay, I guess this is what they're doing. But Fan is really good about laying little things into it. So it feels like this is kind of a rug pull where everything prior was Windu leading more into being enraged, being gung-ho about doing it in person despite losses. And him making this now is... It feels like a complete shift to his characterization, even though we're trying to show that he's still, you know, going mad because like, I'm okay with destroying the city, destroy the enemy. But on the other hand, the city's kind of already at that point. They destroyed a lot of buildings to take out an Imperial column. It's like they're kind of arguing over things they're kind of doing already. It doesn't feel like the right sides have been picked here. It's not a bad thing. And it's not like it's going to break immersion too much. I just am nitpicky because Fan has so few things that are bad or that I disagree with when it comes to narrative points, other than how he likes to jump around writing specific characters and their perspectives all in the same bit. Yeah. Also, Hobbit. Windu ordered the second attack against the Marines that resulted in horrendous losses. He's trying to salvage it without accepting how bad it was. That's the thing, Hobbit. It almost seemed like he couldn't realize just how bad it was because of losing himself to the dark side, which is why when he was in there in person, he was just building up to less and less care for everything around him, just focusing in on just winning despite all the losses. And here it's more, okay, we need to cut our losses. And that's such a big whiplash. Just jumping to that feels like that is too much of a narrative change from, I'm going to do this. I don't care what it takes. I will beat Obi-Wan Kenobi near to death and break his neck because I want to murder someone. Damn it all. Kill them all. Do it. And it's like, okay, now we've lost too many people. We need to step back and rationally assess that this is something where we need to take overwhelming force now that we have superiority. It's like, it feels like Windu's shifted too much. The argument itself, what they're trying to establish here is fine. I don't mind that. It's Windu taking this approach specifically. It's a minor gripe on my part. I just feel like this could be a mistake. Not a huge one. I don't really care too much. But it is something that kind of highlights it because Fan doesn't usually do anything where I feel like, that doesn't seem like the right choice. I honestly feel like it should be the other way around of who's arguing which position.
How many Jedi are these Imperials worth?
Windu almost roared, fist clenched.
I mean, they already had
Not
assassins,
one.
destruction of the
Jocasta,
city, but
slowly turning to eye him.
they've pulled some pretty
it
crazy
is
shit.
unforgivable
Dropping
to do
ships
their
from orbit.
work for them. Something you would be doing if you chose to fight Master Zime. Something that Depa Billaba has already done in dealing a mortal blow to departed Master T'Pau.
She finished.
Ooh,
Mace's
and she was there
face
for that fight,
filled
too.
with fury, and he took a daunting step
This
in
is
Jocasta's
good.
direction, soot stirring on the floor as the
See, this is
Force
what I was hoping would happen.
swirled around him in response to his
Him
intense
losing it.
emotions. But
This
he
is the
came
right
up
choice.
Short, as a blue blade of light ignited across his vision, level with his own eyes. Mace swept his single-seeing eye towards the man holding the saber, his heated fury meeting with Obi-Wan's cold determination. He said nothing, holding his saber out between Mace and Jocasta, his line in the sand drawn and burning.
You have lost control.
Said Master Nu, her eyes just as cold as Obi-Wan's.
You should return to Coruscant. Speak with Master Yoda, and give no more orders until then.
She all but ordered.
Wait, I thought they were returning to Coruscant because a fleet just arrived above it. That also seems weird because she knows as soon as he arrives, he's in a battle. Or are they just getting some kind of notice that a fleet is on the way but hasn't arrived, even though they never had any apparent way to show where they were in transition before? I feel like I'm missing something.
Mace's teeth clenched so hard, Ahsoka was half sure they would shatter.
Also, hey,
The
sup, Ben?
room
Made it in
trembled
nice.
somewhat, hollow discs rattling on tabletops as Mace's functioning eye burned, and his face further creased. A drop of sweat slid down Obi-Wan's head, but his expression remained firm, his knees bending somewhat in preparation. Ahsoka watched on, eyes bulging as time began to slow in sync with the adrenaline.
Now, is she
hitting
going
her
to do something to
blood.
break this?
Before
or?
she knew it, her saber was in her hand, the short bar of blue light rising slowly from the hilt.
What?
She was only a fraction of a second ahead of every other Jedi in the room, many of their eyes glowing like distant bonfires within their skulls. She held her breath.
I'm assuming she means on reflected light from the lightsabers. I only say that because we've had a few instances on this very planet where when they say someone's eye is glowing, they mean that literally. I'm assuming this is reflected. Or is Fan subtly hinting that there's also corrupted Jedi who are possessed along with the clones? I don't think so. Or let me rephrase that. I hope not. That would be really bad to happen off screen like this.
Eyes swiveling in her skull as the clones began to sluggishly raise their guns to aim. Time crawling beneath the weight of the moment.
I do love this though,
As the
just
room
building
was
it up.
lit in multicolored light, Ahsoka watched as Mace's burning eye swept around, seeing the divide, seeing that he did not stand alone. His lips twitched, fist clenching more tightly, air distorting around it.
Please, don't do it.
Ahsoka prayed in her mind, heart hammering in her chest. Mace's eye widened, and the fire within it dimmed. He released his clenched fist, breathing in through his nose and closing his eyes.
See, this is the thing I wish we had seen. This is what I was basically bitching about this entire time. How we seem to go from the last view we had of Obi-Wan of Mace Windu was basically full-on black rage in a Jedi equivalent to making a tactically smart decision and calm enough that he's not immediately trying to slaughter someone, actively calling him out in front of people. It's like we didn't see the calm down period. We just had a sudden shift in perspective. Again, we had a lot happen in between. Probably multiple episodes now I think about it. But just because of this is Fan, a fast transition for him would only be like 5 hours of writing and reading. You know, to someone who hadn't read or listened to this, that would sound like a joke. But for everyone here at this point, I'm assuming you kind of agree with me on that one. It's a very weird thing to say.
Breathing heavily out through his mouth. As he did, a great deal of the tension seemed to leave him. And though he was still scowling when he opened his eyes, his seeing eye was no longer the hateful star it had been before. He gave Jocasta a curt nod past the lightsaber which stood between them, and turned, his tattered robes splaying in the air with the speed of the movement.
With me.
He growled, departing and heading towards the nearby acclamator assault ships.
Gonna call it now. He just gets to orbit, then fires everything from there and leaves.
Nearly half the Jedi following shortly after. As they departed, both Ahsoka and Obi-Wan gave identical, slow releases of breath, sighing silently as they straightened and deactivated their sabers. The Jedi remained following suit.
That was a fair amount more tense than I would have hoped.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine if you were holding all that stress in your neck? Oh, probably a bad time for that.
Master Obi-Wan with a
and all.
faint smile.
Yes, it was. But just navigating that situation didn't solve our problem.
Ilana groaned in his wake.
I may not agree with his nonsense solution, but Master Windu was right about one thing. These Imperials have a nasty habit of bleeding us horrifically whenever we attack them. And
oddly enough, this does make the initial problems I thought would happen with Fan's setup a lot less immediate. I was figuring that Windu would be the big barrier to the entire, hey, let's meet and have a peace deal, or at least a ceasefire temporarily. But now, since he's removing himself, it seems more like the previous episode where Lazarus was talking about, well, we need to prepare for when they inevitably betray us. is probably going to bear fruit when Windu inevitably betrays them without realizing he's betraying them because he wasn't ever party to it. So he isn't even aware he's screwing them over, although he probably would do it on purpose if he was aware. Yeah, I haven't even got that far yet, but I'm assuming it's going to happen at this point.
And I don't expect that they will change that willingly. If we just invade the temple, I half expect them to blow it up with us inside.
Oh,
Which,
yeah, definitely.
in
She's
fairness,
completely right.
Is an even worse outcome than bombing it from orbit.
The iron hand
Yes.
of the Jedi said, raising her famous fists and facing them palms up
I
as she
swear,
shrugged.
they're just... Is that a Marvel thing they
maybe
just
we
put into
don't
Star
attack.
Wars?
Said Obi-Wan.
We have superiority over them in most ways. We can lock them down, siege them, starve them out.
He offered.
Yeah.
That only gives them time to try something desperate.
Like go underground, which no one really has mentioned an option yet.
We need to neutralize them
Oh, that's
more
probably just not
effectively
accounted for.
before they can try another dangerous plan.
Jocasta countered with a shake of her head.
Ahem.
Said a voice, turning the heads of the masters to face Ahsoka as she made her
Okay, that said a voice. This entire thing so far has mostly been through Ahsoka's point of view. So saying a voice only makes sense if we're in Ahsoka's view and she doesn't realize she spoke without talking or spoke without realizing she was the one speaking, such as someone was shouting and then you realize, oh, it was me shouting and I didn't even pay attention because I'm so shocked. It was a big shock. Those were words and they were in an order that may or may not make sense to someone. I'm aware of that. But because it is from her perspective, having that a voice, it doesn't just it doesn't work. It's a minor nitpick. And again, if this was an editing thing, this would be like literally a final draft edit of just change this word in your set. It's not a big deal.
herself known.
I think I may have just the
I'm being a
alternative to
complete writing
try.
Nazi at the moment.
She proposed, a sly smile cutting her features as Captain Rex entered the command base from behind her.
And they're... And fan is fanning us on this one. And yes, I am using fan as a verb in this point. I think it's justified.
Almost time.
Spoke the voice of Aloysius Cinder. Lazarus stood behind the
Okay, that actually was a really good choice for Cinder, and I completely stand by that one. Wow.
entry pillar.
That was
Metal
really nice.
augmentations squealing as he nodded. The edifice's shadow slanted against the setting sun and over the two men.
Understood. Begin. Remember to stay indirect, Cinder. Come in from the
Saint began to say, halting as Cinder raised an armored hand.
With respect, Your Holiness. I know what I'm about.
And
Aloysius
better than him,
added,
probably.
though not harshly.
You are not alone in this.
The man continued, his stern face hidden behind the glare of his fully encompassing helmet. The hard lines which formed Lazarus's wounded, scowling face softened somewhat, just enough for the former soldier to slide a tight grin over his teeth.
Okay, I know this is going to be a little off topic, but I'm sorry. Everything about this makes it look like he's going, "Hey guys, how you doing?" I'm sorry. I just, because you can see the teeth. If the teeth weren't there, this would be intimidating. Because the teeth are there, it just looks like he has some kind of developmental problem that maybe should have been corrected, but wasn't ever got around to. Every time I see it, I've been biting my tongue on that, but it's there and it's like the main focus right now. It's such a cool description, but then you see it, it's like, yep, okay, Uncle Billy. Brother Uncle Billy.
Of course.
He
Billy
said,
Bob Lazarus.
extending out his hand towards the scion.
Go with he who lights the way.
Intoned the saint. Cinder looked down at Lazarus's extended hand for a moment, red lensed eyes glowing in the darkness before looking back up at the saint. His expression was inscrutable as he reached out and grabbed
Oddly enough, I still
Lazarus's
like the
forearm,
voices.
returning the gesture.
The Emperor protects.
Said the Tempestor Prime, gripping Lazarus's flesh and blood arm tightly in his hand, and Lazarus doing the same.
And this is still weird that I'm actually really enjoying the usage of the AI on this, because I usually bitch about that constantly, but no, for someone as stayed in control as Cinder, a solid deep AI steady voice actually functionally works perfectly. This is one of the best options. I kind of like it, and it's weird because of that.
They split then without another word, turning away from each other simultaneously and heading in opposite directions. Like shadows, Cinder's command squad of scions seemed to materialize around him, emerging and falling into line as he swiftly and silently made his way towards the hidden Torok's transports. Stepping out from another one of the entry pillars, upon which she had been leaning, was
resist temptation to get
falling into a stride beside Lazarus as he moved past her. As she did, the canoness took up a banner which she held in her left hand. Tall and billowing, it depicted the symbol of her order, a veiled bride standing beside an empty throne upon a background of red.
Oh.
The bride was winged and held a sword before the throne, which was golden and raised. Above and below her, written in gold, were the words of Leandra's order. In her other hand, she held a flaming mace, a thing which looked almost more like a metal torch than a weapon. While she leaned the banner against her shoulder, she did no such thing with the blazing weapon she gripped in her right gauntlet. She held it away from Lazarus, intentionally walking so that the heat from it would not scald him as they strode towards the others.
Oh.
What was that?
Leandra.
Okay, this is a minor thing, and I kind of just find it funny. With all the art, especially the old sisters art of them with braziers everywhere, and how it's literally right next to their hair and no one ever mentions it, it's kind of cool that finally someone is acknowledging, hey, all this fire everywhere could burn someone. Just that little bit of, oh yeah, let's just move it away so it doesn't get burned. I just like someone actually acknowledging fire is hot. I know that's a weird thing to say, but it's such a motif that everyone just kind of like, oh yeah, it's an effect. We ignore that. Calling it out is nice. I like it because I've seen so little of it. It's a weird thing to say, but I stand by it.
Asked, tilting her head.
Call it vengeance insurance.
Lazarus said,
Call it
prompting a vicious
anti-window.
smile to slowly grow over the battle sister's face. But the saint did not have much time to see it as he came to stand before the rest of his impromptu command
Hey, old man's
squad.
here. Sup?
We are departing soon.
He said, though halfway through the sentence, he realized he should probably give Cinder a little more time to get ahead of them.
Do you remember your roles in this?
He asked them.
Yes, Holiness.
Said Commissar Jane Leros.
I am representing the Astra Militarum in this.
She reported.
Oh yeah, I'm sure she won't just charge it. They're going, Jane Leros. I've made that joke already. I'm going to make it every time. It's in my head. I can't help it. Also, I hope you don't mind, old man. I made you a moderator just so that if I see you drop in, I know it's you and not someone impersonating you, because that has happened before.
Standing straight-backed, she then seemed to pause before snapping a glare over at Farnes, who jumped and stumbled to salute.
And I am acting as the Commissar Colonel's guard, and once we retrieve the prisoners, I will take command of their care and protection.
The young man stated with a stiff salute that he held, even as the next person began to speak.
I am representing the Adeptus Mechanicus Interis.
I love the art for a lot of the characters.
Reported Aurora's synthetic voice as she stood nearby, leaning on her axe.
Also, I missed everything she just said. I heard Mechanicus, and I'm assuming she said she's a representative after that. If there was more than that, it's so digitized. It fits at this point. If he changed, it would be breaking the character. But I'm just going to re-listen to this. What exactly did she say?
Synthetic voice.
Oh,
I am her guard. 1313 stated simply, standing with his remaining arm stiff at his side, back straight, hand filled with the now familiar grip of his hot-shot las pistol. Obviously, I'm the Inquisition, insofar as this cease.
Oh. I'm not sure how much everyone else had that, but there's an audio glitch on that where Samuel's voice is jumping from ear to ear really fast, and it's... Oh, I did not know I could get freaked out physically like that. His voice is great, but it is doing weird things with my headphones.
As far as concerned, said the deep rasp of Samael, a little muffled by the low stick in his mouth.
And I'm Hecate.
Cheerfully chirped his...
You just dropped that in there that she literally just popped out from the side. One, nice to see you learned how to edit that way. And two, probably the funnest way to put it. Like, just, wee, I'm Hecate. I want to say that again. It's just so random. I wasn't expecting that.
Muffled by the
Everyone's so serious, and then...
And I'm Hecate.
Probably the most dangerous person in the room.
Guardian, waving her hand frantically at St. Lazarus as she did, something the Inquisitors seemed to ignore completely.
How many people are now more afraid of her in her first face than her third face who know who she is? Oh. I love this.
Good. I don't believe the Republic will have the grounds to demand that any of you leave. Not with those roles and the rules as written in the message we received.
Obi-Wan is going to see Hecate again, most likely, because there's no way Fan would ever miss the opportunity to have that level of Obi-Wan accidentally risking someone happen. And he's just going to be asking all the questions of, like, are you the same person? This is going to be awesome. It's probably not happening in this episode, damn it.
Though he paused when he noticed Farnus raise his hand stiffly.
Yes, what is it, soldier? Oh, and at ease.
Lazarus said, allowing Farnus
I don't think he's going to be at ease on this one.
Posture somewhat, though he remained quite rigid as he felt Commissar Lyros drilling holes into the side of his head with the raw pressure of her glaring eyes.
What role are you fulfilling, sir?
Leader?
In the meeting, I mean.
Farnus asked,
Negotiator?
and then clarified.
What I mean to say is that, if you don't have a role...
The guardsman continued.
Then they may ask that I and Leandra leave.
Lazarus concluded with a nod of his head, resting his flesh and blood hand on his chin.
That is not a concern,
assured Leandra, stepping forward then, hefting her standard and placing it down, but against the ground beside St. Lazarus.
Is he going to be the negotiator? Is this fan leading into Obi-Wan saying, the negotiator, and then just having a moment to question himself? I don't know if he would do that joke because it'd be way too obvious, but it would actually fit perfectly.
And before the rest of the group.
He is an imperial saint. By my banner and authority as canoness of this basilica, I hereby bestow the authority of the faith upon him.
She declared to them, eyes meeting with Samael's, who, in turn, nodded subtly. She then faced Lazarus.
Yeah, that's good enough.
Will you represent the ecclesiarchy, St. Lazarus? Will you speak for the Emperor's faith?
She asked. Lazarus felt a sense of dizzy lightheadedness building up at the back of his skull, but he nodded nonetheless, reaching forward and grasping.
Normally, I would say that's just his nerves, but considering who he's wearing, it could be, but also, is that Gax trying to do something?
The banner.
As is my duty.
Oh, no.
He managed to say past the whirl of intense, existential emotions the moment had poured into him. Leandra nodded her head and released the standard, allowing Lazarus to heft it with old practice onto his own shoulder. He firmed his expression, gathering his strength to bear this reasserted responsibility, and met his eyes to those of the canoness. She smiled in return, and he took no small amount of strength from that, turning to face the others once more.
Gather whatever you need if you have not already.
Imperium
Then
assemble indeed.
We march.
Oh, we actually get to go back to them. Unironically, I thought Fan would just, well, pull a fan and not let this happen for another couple episodes. So going back here is actually a very nice, well, pleasant surprise. Which means he's probably planning for a bigger cliffhanger later. Lovely.
Ahsoka.
Obi-Wan groaned, leaning over in his seated position and stiffly rubbing his eyes with two fingers. His
Windu
neck
doesn't know they
confined
got
in the brace he wore and forcing
Walker,
his chin
does
up
he?
somewhat.
Because he definitely would have brought that up.
She muttered miserably.
I know Anakin encouraged you to improvise,
but
this is...
He said,
useful.
placing the datapad with her terms down on
they have the same
table
color
before
eyes.
him.
I know.
She said again, crossing her arms.
Half the prisoners... You realize if this doesn't work, and it most likely won't, you are handing the few hundred remaining Imperials several thousands of new...
The Jedi began to go on, leaning back, but being cut off by his second pupil.
Look, I know!
She blurted,
Oh. People in the last video were talking about how Fan was slimming down the cast. I don't think that's quite right. I think he's giving a plausible reason to get the cast of the Imperials he likes outside of the Basilica to survive Windu probably eventually breaking the truce he doesn't know he's a part of and destroying it from orbit. Ah.
fists clenched.
But it needed to be this way.
Ahsoka insisted, placing a hand down on the table.
She's probably right,
said Elena, chewing the bottom of her lip as she did.
You agree with this?
Obi-Wan Kenobi asked, gesturing at the data pad with raised
I do not
eyebrows.
understand this person's character.
I didn't say that.
Elena snapped back.
I mean that she's right about it being the only way to get them to come to the table.
The Jedi Master
I see
explained
it.
to her skeptical contemporary.
They'd need a large, guaranteed bribe to agree to something like this. The imps have been nothing if not uncompromising up until now. But frankly, we might as well give them all the prisoners. Let them worry about feeding and equipping them.
The Iron Hand of the Jedi Order explained.
Actually, what she's describing is a legitimate tactic that has been used in multiple wars, where people will intentionally leave wounded or use less than lethal munitions because a wounded person needs to be brought back, needs to be cared for, takes resources. A dead person just needs to be buried, and that's if they bother to retrieve them until later. So, as horrible as it is, this actually is one of those prisoner exchanges that the Imperium might not be equipped for. On the other hand, this is the Imperium. Their mercy is, well, the Emperor's mercy, and that's actually exactly how mercy was canonically used as a word before it was changed into being nice. So, yay for coming back around.
No, we can't do that. Not if we seriously attempt to achieve anything,
said Obi-Wan, wincing as he instinctively tried to shake his head.
We need the rest of the prisoners to bargain with.
He elaborated.
Not only that,
Ahsoka chimed in.
but they wouldn't trust it. They expect us to betray them, I'm sure. This is enough for them to consider it, but not so much that they think it must be a trap. All of them, however, that would probably be too much to believe.
The young warrior explained.
And yet,
Answered an old, wizened voice.
if they expect betrayal, they are likely to attempt it first.
Okay, I know this is completely stupid to say, but every time I hear Fan's version of Jocasta Nu, I just keep thinking fairy godmother. It doesn't make sense. Nothing she says sounds like that. Nothing she said would be that way in writing. But for some reason, I've made the association. So when I start laughing randomly when she speaks, it's because I'm just imagining the fairy godmother dropping down and then saying, I'm going to bust your ass. Yeah, I don't know why. I'm just going to laugh at inappropriate moments because of that. It's going to happen. Just giving you a heads up.
We leave ourselves terribly exposed by approaching them in this way and relying on them to keep their deal. It is more likely
Imperium's pretty good about it until
that
they're
they will
not.
attempt to destroy us once they retrieve their prisoners.
Advised Master Jocasta Nu.
It would be suicide if they did.
Ahsoka pointed out, but the older Jedi only nodded.
Even so,
Said the chief librarian.
Master Nu has a point.
Elena said grimly, leaning over the table with one hand and gesturing towards the elder master with the other.
The chances that they have some kind of counter-trap ready, or that they will simply try to attack and kill us, are too high to ignore.
The combat master elaborated.
But we can't show up outside of the bounds of the deal. They'll use it as an excuse to run away, or worse, start another fight.
Ahsoka interjected, leaning forward, her hands on the table
Would she?
before her and between them.
Calm down, Ahsoka.
Said Obi-Wan, rubbing his bearded chin as he considered the issue.
You mentioned before that they are not liable to trust us if the deal is too good, right?
The master continued. Ahsoka nodded in response, biting her lip as she did.
We may be able to use that then.
Obi-Wan concluded.
How?
Asked Elena.
We'll have Captain Cody stand by some distance from us with a regiment of forces, more than enough to bowl over what's left of the Imperials.
No, Cody wasn't the one who was showing signs of corruption. I think it was Spikes who was showing signs of corruption. Unless I'm mistaken, because I completely forgot names again for the Jedi. Not the Jedi. The clone accompanying Ahsoka. Was it Cody or Spikes? Shit, I was so focused on the fact that one of them was showing signs of corruption that I completely forgot to catch which name it was.
Explained the Soresu master.
Or does it matter because they might also be having a piece of...
Ahsoka asked, but Obi-Wan nodded.
Despite the atrocity we have seen them inflict on others, these Imperials care about each other.
Rex? No.
At least some do.
He explained,
so, we're good.
Remembering in his mind the Inquisitor, his assassin, the female knight, and her maimed yet stalwart commander.
They won't abandon the prisoners of war we have lightly. So if we place Cody and his forces...
I love everything that Fan just wrote, because it's such a perfect Obi-Wan thing. It's like, they won't ignore or abandon their prisoners of war lightly. I'm just sitting here going like, if you didn't have a Titan pilot, yes, they would. But because you have a Titan pilot, you have a Titan pilot. That is something they won't abandon lightly. Literally everyone else, they would gladly just abandon. And, well, I mean, maybe not gladly. The Mechanicus would probably completely emotionlessly abandon. Gladly would imply caring enough on the human side, which, you know, some of them have cut out at this point. And I mean that quite literally cut out. Yeah, body horror. Mechanicus, yeah. Also, I've been corrected. It was Rex that did that, not Cody, and Spikes is the one on the ship. For some reason, I keep getting his name wrong. My only question is it the 501st and Rex an example of corruption, or is it all the clones are being pulled in together because they're clones, they have that connection? I don't know. It might not matter if it's all the clones together.
Is a certain distance away,
Obi-Wan said, letting the words hang in the air.
Like, far enough away that the Imperials could feasibly run away from the meeting point and escape.
Ahsoka continued the line of thought.
Then it would be enough to show them that we are ready for treachery, but not enough to make them believe we have committed to it ourselves.
Jocasta finished, nodding her head.
It is
validating their paranoia.
She affirmed a moment later.
Almost a good plan.
Elena added in, raising Obi-Wan's eyebrows in the process.
They could always use the time they need to run away to suicidally attempt to kill us instead.
Which
Elena
someone, they
elaborated.
definitely would.
Ahsoka frowned, but before she could speak, her master's former master interjected.
You're not wrong, and we would be in a rather bad situation if that happened. But only if Cody's forces were the only ones waiting in the wings.
Master Kenobi said.
But they will...
Is he... Oh, God, Fan, you're actually going as... We're having a pile-up of fake-out betrayals. So when the real betrayal happens, I'm again assuming it's just Windu in orbit without even realizing it's a betrayal. So there's the first layer of the meeting, which will be completely legit, and no one actually wants to betray anyone on either side. But then there's the plan for the betrayal of the betrayal, which they know will be a betrayal because it's definitely going to be a betrayal, because who would not betray them at this point? Because the other side is very much prone to betrayal, even though they're not prone to betrayal. So we have both sides planning for that. Where on the Imperium side, it's like, we're just going to take one step back for in case something happens. Where on the Star Wars side, it's like, well, they expect us to betray them, so we need to show them that we're ready to betray them. Otherwise, they're going to assume they just can't see it. They're going to look even harder, become more paranoid because they can't spot the betrayal. But then now he's saying, on top of the betrayal that we're showing that we're planning to betray them, but not actually betray them, but could betray them, we're planning for a third level of now we're even planning a betrayal in case they betray us. And that's also ignoring the incoming Demon Storm, Windu in orbit, which would count for both an Imperium and Star Wars side betrayal, which wouldn't actually be a betrayal because neither one of them was from someone who was party to this and was unconnected, but would not actually be aware of from either faction. This is literally just a giant pile up of what the hell is going on. I normally say it's a Xanatos Gambit pileup, except these aren't even Xanatos Gambits. It's more like a bunch of people are planning around plans to see what's planning, and also there's a bunch of giant WMDs about to drop at the same time.
Only be the visible ones, Master Aletta,
Oh,
not
God.
the only ones.
I love this. It's so overcomplicated.
What do you have in mind?
Asked Elena, a devious expression sliding
And
over
Ron
her
said it's basically
face.
Alpha Legion in a nutshell.
Obi-Wan returned her smile.
Arc Troopers.
Was his answer.
Alpha Arc Troopers.
Oh. Moving to Ahsoka Tano and the clones? I guess a time shift?
They had gathered some distance away from the meeting point with the Imperials, Ahsoka having advised that it was probably best to arrive at around the same time, and not early. Obi-Wan had seconded the recommendation, and now
Because early looks
here
like
they were,
something's going
waiting. Ahsoka had her eyes fixed on a datapad, streaming a video feed through it and watching it intently. On the screen before her was the smoking war.
Oh, I love that he brought that sound effect out. Specifically, I'm pretty sure that is a standard Star Wars sound effect. But I remember that one specifically from the original episode 2, or I guess episode 5 now, on Hoth, where they're running through the feeds and they discover the probe droid. It's that sound effect of just hearing it. I love it. And Fan going with the Alfarius Arc Troopers plan. Yeah.
War-torn streets of Azure City, avenues
Such a
of
good sound
bent and
effect.
broken metal languishing silently under
I know it's been
columns
used
of
other
smoke
places, but that's
which
where I
drifted
first heard
this
it.
way and that. When clear of those black pillars of ash, Ahsoka would have been able to see straight through all the
God, my
way to
glasses
the
are
walls
broken.
of the Imperial Temple. Now, however, she would need to command the probe droid she was seeing through to deploy more than its baseline sight scopes to pierce this veil. Though what she could see now would still be enough to warn her of their approach.
Anything?
Asked Rex, the clone standing near to her side, carefully checking and examining his new Imperial death laser. The
Would the
weapon had a
Psychers
light
be able
blue
to
and white
tell
coating of paint that
about
someone had
Rex?
managed to get an astromech droid to apply hastily.
Probably not, because the
giving
Jedi
it
could
a
tell then.
Republic emblem on the stock of the weapon as well. He seemed to be trying to figure out how to properly clean it, and was carefully disassembling the weapon while referencing a small Imperial handbook, tapping his helmet from time to time to reload the translation program he was using to read it.
Not yet.
Ahsoka answered without looking away.
Maybe it's a trap.
He offered, and Ahsoka frowned, still not moving her head.
If it is, then we won't fall into it easily.
She muttered, sliding her finger over the datapad and
Are they talking about something different than the meeting then? Because if it's the meeting, they're walking right into it easily.
directing the probe droid to show her more of its 360-degree view.
Maybe, but still, I wonder what the outcome will be if they really...
So does a probe droid,
Rex
nice.
began to say before cutting himself off.
Oh, Scrog.
He cursed,
What?
visor orienting towards a target in the distance.
Oh, someone arriving?
What?
Asked Ahsoka, looking up and following the orientation of Rex's helmed head to the path of an approaching clone. The clone was notable right away for two distinct features: the blue markings on his helmet and armor, and his bulky, somewhat larger size, something that stuck out distinctively on a clone trooper.
Larger?
Ahsoka quirked her eyebrow stripes and looked back
Like one of the Bad
towards
Batch
Rex,
larger,
unable
or-
to miss how similar the style of their armors were and how close their blue patterns seemed to match each other.
No,
Brother of
probably not.
yours?
Ahsoka asked, and Rex nodded, slowly.
Older brother, way older.
He added, seeming almost
Oh.
as tense as he would confronting an approaching enemy.
Is
Way
it Frodo?
older? How can he be way older?
She asked,
probably
but
Frodo.
Rex initially only shook his head.
He's a prototype.
He said after a moment, straightening somewhat as it became clear that this clone was heading directly towards them.
Yep.
Him in particular.
Oh.
Well, what's his name?
Ahsoka asked, putting the datapad down.
His designation is A-17,
Rex answered.
But?
Anakin named him Alpha.
He finished.
Ah, I thought it'd be Frodo because, well, mimetic badassery. But okay, no, Alpha it is then.
Presenting a crisp salute.
Did Anakin also name one Omega? You know, his presence alone with that name, the introductions would become very awkward, and I kind of hope it happens for that reason alone. It's a stupid joke, but I would love it.
And making Ahsoka blink in surprise. The clone said nothing as he strode up, getting almost right into Rex's face before he stopped. Rex did not budge or flinch. A tense moment passed where Ahsoka felt she should say something, but had no idea what to say.
At least you still remember how to salute, even if we are the same rank now.
The clone rasped.
Experience outranks everything. You helped teach me that, and I don't forget lessons,
said Rex, only breaking his salute when Alpha returned the statement with a very slight nod, the chin of his helmet dipping only minutely.
Still, I didn't think experience could buy you out of death. I thought you went missing, along with the body of Asajj Ventress.
Rex added as he returned.
Oh, is this one of the characters who should be
posture.
dead?
I made it back a few months ago. Been
I have
walking
no idea
around
about
for
that as
weeks
part of the
now.
lore.
No thanks to Grievous and his 4 fracking lightsabers.
Alpha explained.
Exactly why I'm surprised you made it back at all. What happened to your shuttle?
Asked Rex, to which the
Had some
older
trouble, I'm
clone
assuming.
sighed through his nose.
Asajj Ventress happened. Turns out she was not as dead as the General thought. She woke up, hijacked the ship, and...
He then shook his head.
It's a long story, Rex.
Alpha concluded.
A long story that ends with you ending Ventress for good, right?
Nope.
Rex asked,
That came later.
But the clone shook his head.
Or
We came
already
to an
happened.
understanding. She isn't a SEP anymore, not a priority target. Besides, I had a few more pressing concerns, we all did. But like I said, it's a long story, and not one I'm authorized to tell right now, in any case.
Rex nodded his head somberly then.
Well, whatever the case may be, it's good to see you back and on our side. Now maybe more than ever.
Ahsoka's clone captain said. Alpha nodded, but before he could add anything to that statement, he was addressed by someone else. His attention pulled to them instead.
Hi.
Ahsoka interjected, stepping such that Rex moved back so
If
that she
Anakin
could
named him,
stand
would Ahsoka have
before
met him?
Alpha.
It probably
She
is obvious to
extended
people
her
in the lore, but I don't know
hand,
this
an
part.
unsure expression on her face as she scrutinized him.
I'm Ahsoka Tano,
She went on.
Anakin's former Padawan. I've heard a little about you. I understand that you used to work under my master's command before I joined his team.
Again.
Oh, it's that early in. Oh, shit, I wouldn't even know that.
The clone did not deign to answer right away, his helmet moving steadily as he scanned her up and down.
Negative.
He said a moment later, not taking her extended hand.
I wasn't Anakin's soldier. I was his babysitter. General Kenobi was my commander, even if most of his commands were to follow his Padawan around and keep him alive.
Alpha explained.
I love this. The sheer level of bullshit. This is literally, I want to hear that again.
Sitter.
Hand.
I wasn't Anakin's soldier. I was his babysitter. General Kenobi was my commander, even if most of his commands were to follow his Padawan around and keep him alive.
Alpha explained.
I see the cycle is repeating again.
He added, his tone almost sour as he looked between Ahsoka and Rex. Ahsoka withdrew her hand and crossed her arms.
Well, you're a rude clone.
Ahsoka said in response.
I'm also a correct one.
Alpha added without missing a beat.
Considering some of the bullshit Anakin has pulled, yeah, that's a smart choice. I love this guy already.
This plan is suicidal, unwarranted, and just plain stupid.
He said flatly. Ahsoka raised a single white eyebrow,
and it might
her
work.
Expression conveying a stale, unimpressed appearance.
Gee, thanks for that tactical insight.
She retorted.
If you want to thank me, then call this off.
Nope.
Was his quick response.
And do what? Bomb them from orbit like Master Windu wanted to?
Probably, yeah.
The former Jedi asked, exasperation filtering into her voice.
No, that's wasteful, and it fails our mission.
Oh.
He said to Ahsoka's surprise.
The mission was to capture the Basilica. We should assemble several teams of commandos and arcs, wait until nightfall, and breach the Basilica from the lower level. We'll prime some canisters with the blue shadow virus and...
The blue shadow virus?
Ahsoka exclaimed, cutting him off.
We are in the middle of Axum. Even if...
I actually remember seeing the video on the blue shadow virus. Isn't that the one that's like basically the WMD that they have access to at this point? Shit. Huh. Wow, this guy is way more hardcore than Windu is right now. Windu is literally huffing the dark side. So, damn, wasn't expecting it to go that hard.
If a little bit leaks to the greater population, the civilian losses will be...
She began to
probably
retort,
about as bad as they
only
already
to be
are.
cut off herself.
Manageable. We can disperse vaccines onto the planet once we have confirmed that Basilica is secure and ours. This will lead to the least amount of risks, losses, and maximize the amount of gains we can make for the Republic.
Or, you know, maybe they just happen to have something like that already, because if it is a separate universe, they might have parallel development, and it's entirely possible the Mechanicus already has as a standard inoculation because death worlds are a thing. So, yeah, it could be useless. You can never find out until you try, and it works or it doesn't. Basically, what I'm saying is this would be up to fans' decision if he wants the blue shadow virus to work, or for it to be a sudden reveal that it's similar enough to something the Mechanicus has dealt with that they can deal with it already. Or, hell, for all I know, the Imperial Guard, because, again, death worlds.
Alpha pressed, though Ahsoka did not seem convinced.
I'm not going to do that. If this works, then maybe there won't need to be any more fighting at all.
Ahsoka said.
With all due respect, you will only be incentivizing a determined enemy to take advantage of us in the future. This war is...
See, everything he just said right there is stupid, because it's implying that they're going to do anything other regardless. They usually don't bother taking advantage because it's, you've already listened to me and surrendered, or you've already listened to me and died. Both of which are options I'm okay with. Yeah. I wonder if this is actually... This is probably a fan just giving a more accurate opinion to one and a more hardened opinion to the other. Just show a difference of opinion by the more hardened soldier giving the harder opinion. Beyond some of the more crazy aspects of Windu, because everything he says is filtered through, oh my god, I'm definitely not a Sith yet. I don't know why that was my Windu impression. That was bad. I should never do that again.
Inevitable. Nothing that happens here will stop it.
Alpha retorted.
And with all due respect to you, sir, that is not your call to make.
Rex interjected, getting his words in before Ahsoka
Pompadour
could begin
clone.
to rail at him again.
Was not expecting that.
Paused once more, but only for a brief moment before giving a nod.
I know,
he said, before then reaching for a pouch he had mounted on his pauldron and withdrawing something from it.
I'm watching your back. You won't know from where, but I'll be seconds away or less.
Alpha explained to the young commander, handing her a
They
small
did mention bringing in the Alpha
transponder.
troop.
Hide this on your person somewhere.
He's an Alpha ARC trooper named Alpha. He's the double A. Now he needs a bunch of batteries to keep him going.
You can easily press, and then, when trouble comes and you need someone to pull your saber out of the fire, use it.
He instructed. Ahsoka hesitated for just a moment before nodding and taking it.
Hopefully I won't need it.
She said as she slid it under her collar.
You will.
Alpha stated without a hint of uncertainty before turning
She
around
probably will, but
and
not for the reason you're
departing,
expecting.
stopping for only a moment to tilt his helmet to the side.
Stay sharp, Rex.
He said from over his shoulder.
Always.
The clone captain responded, the elder clone nodding sharply and resuming his departure. Ahsoka followed him with her eyes and a sour expression.
Well, isn't he a bucket full of sunshine?
She said sarcastically once she was sure he was out of earshot.
Wonder if he's burned down any good orphanages lately.
She added, arms crossed as her face filled with lines
Audio
of
glitch.
frustration.
Well, I'll be sure to ask him his count if the Seps or Imps begin building any.
Rex answered, only half joking, if that much.
Great. You know, I don't know if that gives me hope or makes me hopeless.
Ahsoka said
Yes.
with a shake of her head.
What does?
Asked Rex, and in response, Ahsoka gestured in Alpha's direction.
People like him, they remind me that no matter what we think, we're not so different from most of the people we fight. And I can't decide if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
She
Also, the
concluded.
answer to that is
Rex
yes.
wanted to argue, but he knew Alpha 17 far too well to engage in that delusion. Trained by Jango himself, genetically augmented for superior strength and speed, Alpha was the Republic's pale reflection of the super soldiers the Imperium fully endorsed. And what's more, Alpha had been among the first, not the last, to be created. He was not a recent development. He was, in many ways, what Rex was meant to be. And Anakin's current captain could not deny that he was at least somewhat grateful that, in the end, he was ultimately someone and something else. But not entirely. A beeping from Ahsoka's datapad roused them both from their thoughts and dragged...
Fan, I usually like a lot of the sound effects you put in there. That one is way too drawn out and just bubbly. Maybe a few little dots, but that is a very long connector. It goes well beyond when it actually should enter. I don't mind the effect, but it feels like it's multiple ones put together. Whew.
Beeping from Ahsoka's datapad roused them both from their thoughts and dragged their attention back to it.
What's that?
Rex asked, and it took a moment for Ahsoka to answer.
It's still going.
The droid's wide-range proximity sensors have been breached. Something is coming up the road.
Ooh, it's
Ahsoka
starting.
said, squinting at the datapad, but not able to make anything
Changing
out yet.
music?
Whatever it is, the droid is saying that it is more than a couple of people.
Ahsoka added, worry worming into her voice.
Because she doesn't know how many sides they have
He
just
asked,
internally, yeah.
and Ahsoka only bit her lip in response and waited. They both crowded around the datapad, watching carefully. The droid who was their eyes was hovering between two Axumite spires, its antenna
What's she gonna
bobbing,
see?
its lens
Or who's she gonna see
photoreceptors
first?
clicking and sighing metallically as they zoomed in closer. The smoke drifted across the...
Fan, are you going to give in to temptation just having them all walk away from an explosion in the background somehow? Like unexploded ordnance going off to give them the cool walking away effect. Maybe. Maybe not.
ruined road leading up to the meeting point, just the same as it had
probably going to
before.
end right as they arrive,
Its
too.
gentle black
Or as soon
streams
as she
flowing
sees them.
from one side to the other as they endeavored to follow the wind. Then, that same guiding wind pulsed and fluctuated, as if disturbed by what was approaching, and by that disturbance,
Like a psyker?
the curtain of ash wavered, pulled back, and revealed what the droid had been sensing. Stepping through the ash and soot born on the air, the Imperial delegation made itself known. Thick boots crunched metal fragments as the wind around them licked and tossed at the hems of tattered robes and long coats.
God.
Bandages, bravery, and burnt steel held shut what should have been felling wounds on each of them.
I actually do really like the art fan got for this one. And it does kind of highlight that out of everyone here, Farnus still looks the most out of place. And I'm including 1313 as making sense. And then there's just Hecate in the background, like just big Hecate.
And each of them bearing their own version of a grim expression, with perhaps a single impish exception.
The most dangerous person
Stepping
there.
Through the ash and soot born on the air, the Imperial delegation made itself known. Right away, Ahsoka's eyes found a known face, spotting Farnus walking on the far left of the
Is she gonna
approaching
wave or
group.
something?
The young guardsman looked
She hasn't noticed
almost
Samuel
as
then yet.
disheveled as he had when she had pushed him off into the path of his oncoming forces, and she was honestly relieved to see him alive, though shocked to note that he himself would be an actual part of the delegation.
Why?
Beside him.
No, seriously, why? That actually makes perfect sense. If they didn't kill him, then he's a valuable point of contact who already has some level of rapport. If anything, it would be stupid if they didn't take him. Granted, he's also there as a background character, so Yeah. Yeah, I guess the Imperium and technology, or sorry, not technology, Imperium and diplomacy is still a weird thing. But if they were, that actually would be a valid tactic.
Walking just in front of him was a woman, a grim-faced Imperial officer who held a thick gun in one hand and wore some kind of massive, sparking gauntlet on her other.
And he added the spark effect on it. I think he's been playing around with individual edits on images more than before. It's kind of cool to see.
Ahsoka could feel her glare even through the screen, and every
Standard
passionate
commissar.
step she took screamed of a violent, angry desire. Across from them, on the right side, was one of the Imperial droidmen, a female priest of their machine faith who seemed wounded. Not that any of them appeared in anything resembling pristine condition, but the priestess was missing her right arm, leaning on a large axe stave as she made her way across the battlefield for support. Above her head orbited a small flock of those fluttering skull droids the Imperials seemed so fond of, the same devices as Bofin was. Behind her was another young...
Actually, now that you mention it, what happened to Bofin? Is he still with them because Nerva, or did he go back with Farnus? Probably still with them.
Soldier.
I don't know. It's been a while until this moment he was mentioned.
Of the priestess he followed, in that he too was missing an arm, hefting in his remaining right hand an Imperial laser pistol of some kind. He seemed calm, focused, almost as mechanical as the literal cyborg before him. He had thick bandages wrapped around one side of his face, covering one of his eyes in the process, and around his neck hung a broken, burnt chemical mask. Taking up the center back was what Ahsoka assumed to be a space marine, for she wore powered armor and stood taller within...
Oh yeah, because functionally she's making the completely incorrect decision. Oh, because sisters were essentially, well, what if we had space marines and they were female? That's the reasoning for them. That's specifically the out-of-universe production reasoning for them. So yeah, it makes sense. Also, the reason the armor is so explicitly, well, explicit in some cases, because an actual crazy pervert designed it, and it's so good they don't throw it out and kept doing it.
In it than nearly everyone
In and out of
else
universe,
in her
man.
delegation. In her left hand, she held some kind of long-snouted
And the
pistol,
irony, of course, is the
which
failed
made
space marines
itself
right next
seem
to him.
odder by the addition of tubes leading into its nozzle and a small tank in its hand grip. In her right hand,
flamer.
she held aloft some kind of fiery-headed mace-like weapon, holding it high like a torch she intended to use to light their way.
Is
Her
it?
every step was a declaration, her eyes a proclamation of determination. Before her, at the center of them, and walking in the front of their group, was a man who seemed to lead them, and yet was apart from most of them in a very notable way. He seemed to be wearing scorched and torn sackcloth robes.
Okay,
under
yeah, it's
armor that
Lazarus,
was
not-
at all unlike what Farnus was wearing. The armor of a soldier, of a grunt. His right arm and left leg had been replaced at some point by cybernetics, his skeletal limb replacements among the most distinctive features about him, aside from what he wore on his face and what he carried in his hands.
Which is she going to ping onto first? The psychic skull or the potentially religiously significant banner? Because that may or may not have some bullshit going on. It's always hard to tell because sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
He held high a red banner depicting a veiled, winged woman. She stood before an empty throne, holding a sword and torch as if to protect it from any who may approach. Above and below were golden-stitched words in the Imperial language, making themselves difficult to read in the mild wind which tossed and billowed the banner. On his face was a mask, which, to Ahsoka, appeared to have been crafted from the actual skull of another human.
Yep.
The mask gave
She got
her
that one.
pause, the sight of it sending shivers through her body, but
So she
more
can
than
tell.
that, she noticed how the center of its head seemed to glisten and shine oddly, as if composed of more than just bone. However,
Oh, so she can actually tell. Also, yeah, this is a better version of the mask without the overbite teeth. Nice.
the sight that truly made her heart run cold was the sight of those standing just
Samuel
in
and
behind
Hecate.
and beside this strange leader of the delegation.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Ahsoka muttered.
I was looking for this.
Rex asked, and she pointed at the two she had seen before, an enormous man and a small, blue-eyed woman who walked at his side, a skull mask hanging from her hip. The man wore scorched and torn green work fatigues under a long black overcoat which was equally damaged and burnt. Dark pants and dark boots with something like a lightsaber hanging on his belt, though not in his hand. Instead, in his right hand, he held something that looked like a death stick.
Would he still have Mace Windu's lightsaber? I don't actually remember. It'd be awesome if he had that, just because of the randomly pulling it out would be funny as hell.
A tube of something that he was smoking, plumes of blue smoke following in his wake. In his left hand, he was...
Okay, I'm just going to acknowledge right now, I'm not much of a smoker, or at all. I thought he was just doing standard tobacco. Because it's all medic, not actually physically indoctrinated on him. Is smoke from tobacco actually blue? Or is that just something fans doing? Honestly, it could go either way. It might be just actually that color when I just never noticed. Or it's something fan is alluding to, and I'm just not sure of it. I just don't know enough about this.
holding some kind of symbol, a stylized red and gold eye, with a skull sitting in the center.
I met that one before. I thought he was a rebel back then, but I guess he was a spy.
The former
Well,
Jedi.
he can do whatever he
explained.
wants. He's done both.
Ah, I see. Well, that shouldn't be too bad then.
Rex said, but Ahsoka shook her head.
No, Rex, I kinda convinced him that I was collecting Imperial heads from the battlefield to eat.
She admitted, feeling her face burn as she...
I forgot about that. So basically, he just got the, oh, we're meeting with the cannibal. I completely forgot about that. Oh, this is so much better. Oh, wow. Fan, you actually set that up perfectly. I didn't even realize it until right now.
She did, and looking away.
Oh, right. I think I remember this now.
And
Rex said, laying his helmed face
Rex doesn't
in his
remember
hand
it.
and shaking his head.
Oh, and much more concerning is Rex showing visible signs, not just interior one with his perspective, that something is breaking down.
Look, I thought he was a rebel.
Ahsoka blurted out.
Yeah, well, now he's gonna think you're one of those human-eating aliens Farnes was screaming about back in the base.
Rex.
And when he asks, Farnes is going to get freaked out because I don't eat people is exactly what he believed until now.
Groaned, and Ahsoka crossed her arms, but could not exactly disagree.
I think Fan is laying two tracks down right now. The red herring, which is Ahsoka eating people, because that seems like the bigger red herring. Or not the bigger red herring, but like the bigger problem. But then the smaller one that's probably going to become much worse is Rex not remembering and holding his hand. Because, like I said, it's a physical representation of the mental problems with the god he's seeing, judging by the storm, which we know is oncoming. Don't make a reference to Metal or Devil May Cry. Don't make a reference to Devil May Cry. Don't make a reference to Devil May Cry. Nothing about a storm that's approaching. I'm not going to say shit about that. Moving on from that temptation, I think we're getting the actual problem underlay on this one. It's going to be fun.
I'll just have to explain to them and hope that that's enough to keep the talks going.
Ignore the fact
She
that Corpse starches
sighed
people
after
and
a
they actually
moment.
technically have a lot of
Come
cannibalism.
on, we need to get moving.
she said, striding forward toward the rest of the waiting camp around her.
Right.
Rex affirmed, trailing her wake as Ahsoka began to walk alongside the long train of Imperial prisoners they had brought with them, and the clones who stood beside them, guarding them vigilantly. She paused at a portable bacta-tank that they had wheeled out as part of the exchange, the woman within still comatose, her heartbeat faint, and slowly growing.
And they have the absolute most important prisoner to hand off. Oh, I thought that'd be further back with the other ones, but no. They actually brought Nerva because they don't have a way to save Nerva, so they're getting that to them so they can. Which also means that there's not going to be any issues. So the Mechanicus wouldn't mind if everything breaks down because they get what they want immediately. The only reason they supported this. And admittedly, a pretty good reason. Also, Clan Lycos, you're asking, how does my system at recommending videos work? It doesn't. It's a problem. I'm aware of it.
Fainter.
May the Force be with us all.
She whispered
Don't
softly
dare
to
end
the
right there,
unconscious
fan.
form of Nerva Sharp before
Wait, her last
walking
name is
past
Sharp?
her and
Oh,
alerting
I guess
Master
I just forgot that.
Kenobi. It was time.
Fan, are you actually... You actually are just going and seeing some of the space battle that we are not even seeing yet. It's a cool space battle, but damn. You get right to that point. You highlight, oh yeah, by the way, I mentioned I'm eating people. I'm looking for heads. I mean, again, he's an Inquisitor. He's worked with worse people. Hell, one of his people is an Avisor. Sorry, a failed Evisor who's a Psyker. His brother, relative person is Tarweiler. So, yeah. But just this right here, you just... God damn you, fan. I want more, and there is no more. I've heard again that he's getting ready to release, at least for his Patreon supporters, which you should support because he's awesome, another section of this, or at least a small snippet, that's the word. But that's not now, and it's not out in the next week, probably. So, yeah, this is going to be just me sitting here going, is it ready? Has it refreshed? Is there more? Is there more? Is there more? Is there more? For a while now, and it's going to suck. Yeah. Also, to quote Hobbit in the chat, 1, thank you. 2, is the plan to start the Norfolk Wizard game next week since you joined us in Waiting for Fan to do his job group? I don't know. I actually don't know. I might do it. I might not. I just haven't figured out what I'm going to do. I'll probably put up a poll to see if you want that or something else. Maybe I'll do a game. Maybe I'll just take the day off for once. I don't know. We'll put up a poll, see what happens. But it'll probably be the Norfolk Wizard game. Unless it's something from, I don't know, maybe All Guardsman Party or, what was the other one? The Dingo Doodles, the Sands. Yeah, Dingo Doodles, Fool's Gold Sands. We'll see what happens. Either way, I love this. I love that little reminder of, oh yeah, by the way, I said something embarrassing that sounds horrible. And if it wasn't the Imperium, that would actually be a deal breaker, but it's the Imperium. So again, corpse starches people, cannibalism is the way most people are fed. Yeah. Oh man, you're heading off to do your thing. Right. Good luck, man. Hope you get some recordings and that don't happen to crash midway through. It's never something you should actually wish on someone, but wishing it doesn't happen, always worth it. Because if it does happen, from experience, it sucks. Yeah. That said, I'm just going to go back to my previous statement. God damn you, fan. This is great. This is fun, and I'm loving it. And there's no more. Yep. I'm just a little annoyed because it's over. Damn it. And I don't regret speeding through some episodes because I really wanted to see what happened because they were so good. But also, now it's over, and that sucks. Also, Hobbit, you mentioned he's doing a video on a Calidus Assassin script with 8,000 words? Oh, are you talking about Old Man or someone else? If it's 8,000 words, that is a very big script Old Man is going to read out. Damn. I'm going to check out his lore channel as well, because I know he's made one. And people have recommended it, so maybe I'll check that out. Again, we'll put up a link on the poll and figure out what happens then. Also, if someone could remind me, we'll see what happens that way as well. Yeah, all the same. I just... there's so many things I feel Fan is leading into on this one, but this is very much a transition episode. So the light ... makes a lot of sense because it's showing that it is the transition right there. I thought it was leading into and it fades and we're about to get hit by something horrible, but it seems like this is more the setup for said horrible thing to happen because we have the schism in the Jedi, Windu in space wanting to bomb people from orbit. We have all the bullshit we talked about on land. We got the incoming storm. And that's just there if we take out the fact that we still don't know exactly what Anakin and Kaon are up to, so they're still floating around. The Imperium finding out about him is a massive problem because there's a few people who will know exactly who that is and would realize the, oh, we're fucked, is the equivalent of anything they're going to do at this point. Yeah, hopefully they find out at range so they get that information out. I don't know. We'll see how this goes. Fan has not touched on them in a while. I'm not entirely sure what his plans are at this point because it seems like the next stage is moving directly onto Coruscant because, sure, why not? Either that or he's heading in for the Episode 3 battle over Coruscant right now, and this is actually just moving into that. And somehow Grievous is going to ramp up and be there for that because still bringing the Separatist as a way to even out the playing fields by neutralizing so many ships on the Imperium side by sheer weight of numbers of, oh shit, I have all the machines. Is that what's going to happen? Probably not. But it'd be funny. I doubt it. We'll see what happens. I don't know, but... And that's not even mentioning the fact that I forgot Palpatine is literally on planet right now. Which he won't reveal himself, but he could fuck around with other people. So, you know, pulling a Palpatine's like normal. So many things that could happen. And that's just assuming Palpatine and Kaon don't meet on Axum or have some kind of spiritual force villain awareness of each other. Because maybe they will, maybe they won't. I doubt it, if only because that seems like a confrontation for much later when Kaon is less disarmed. Yeah. There's a lot of things going on right now, and this is after Fan has consolidated so many plot lines down into this moment, and it still feels like it's building up. So all I gotta say is, God damn you, Fan, for this cliffhanger. Still just hanging there. It's not as bad as your usual ones. It's just still really bad. Yeah. Either way, you guys know the deal. Links below video. Hit it up. And if you do, leave a like as well and comment on my channel, because every time you do, Fan forgets he has written the Hesiarch, you know, the flesh cloak enthusiast, and never brings him up again, because I enjoy having my insides remain inside of me instead of throwing up out of fear, because that guy would very much inspire that. No joke. He just terrifies me. That was terrifying. Yeah. I'll see you guys in the next one, whenever that is. And look out on the channel for whenever we put up a poll for what to do next week, and we'll see what happens. But if you got a suggestion, let me know. I'll take it up. I'll see you guys then. Adios.